All right. Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Hey, nice to see you all. Hey. I expect my presentation not be boring. If it's boring, just like okay, you can tell me. Okay, it's a little bit boring, etc. I know it might be boring because what I will show you about managing test data, of course, but I will show some slides, which is boring, but I will show code as well. I will just show some slides to give you the context of what we will achieve, and then I will go to my IDE, of course, and write some code with you, and you will support me. And probably I made some mistakes in the code, you help me to fix the mistakes, okay? Cool? Normally what I do during the talks, you guys can ask questions at any time. So if you have any question, I'm talking about something, raise your hand. I will be really happy to answer it, okay? And I will stop as well and ask you, do you have any question? Otherwise, we will move on. Cool? Deal? All right. So, my name is Elias or Elias or whatever you guys can pronounce my name. It's super fine. I don't have any problem with it. I'm a Brazilian guy, but I live in the Netherlands nowadays. You guys can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and mailing GitHub because I had all the projects, including the 2 different projects that I will show you here in my GitHub account. It's open. You guys can go there, see, modify, and do whatever you want. I'm one of the Java champions, Oracle Ace for Java, and the Java Magazine Netherlands editor as well. So if you guys are interested in writing something for the Java Magazine, talk to me. And if you publish it only in the Netherlands, we do have mixed language there. It's half Dutch, half English, which is nice. So it's pretty inclusive. And yeah, just talk to me. And they are still doing like the Incas and Mayas are doing, like printing, yeah, the magazine. So you receive like printed magazine. So it's really cool. It's really vintage nowadays. All right, so what is the problem we will solve here today? Data, of course. And when we have data, we know one thing. Data without meaning is hard to troubleshoot. So look at this. Normally you guys use like random string utils from Apache Commons. For example, it's exactly like this. But can you understand the name, surname, email, and address? No. It's just a bunch of random chars there. And it's really hard because when we are in the troubleshooting process, we must correlate data, right? Because, okay, what is the username? What is that exact data? I need to correlate to deep dive or to drill down all the possible problems. The second one, it's we don't normally prioritize data requirements. So look at this, age as 1. Does it seem correct? It really depends the context, right? But it doesn't seem like, if it's a nursery, maybe yeah. If it's I don't know, like something for voting system, maybe not. If you need to buy some alcohol, maybe definitely not, right? The other thing, the other, let's say, problem is, okay, we went through those problems, so I have an excellent idea to actually add something there. So I can like now add meaningful names and data that everyone can understand. But most of the time what we do, we add it as a fixed data. So normally, of course, you run once, it passed, successful. The second time, okay, it's conflict. Oh, I need to adjust the data. So we start even this approach like user 1, 2, 3. Then user 1, 2, 3, 4. Then, and we're increasing this kind of numbers. Still, you end up in your logs or in your drill down with the same data. And the trickiest part will be that concatenation you guys are doing. Okay? Can you guys see that sometimes we are facing this problem? Yeah, all the time, right? Luckily, I will show you how to avoid these problems. So just to summarize, we have plenty of problems, let's say, but the main ones hard troubleshooting when we're looking at the data, not prioritized data requirements, and no patterns for data generation. So most of the time it's fixed data. How we can solve it? in 4 steps. First one, we need to define a way to generate the data. Then we must use a tool for that. I don't want to go there every time and modify my data, so let's hand over this process to a tool. Third point is to understand the data requirements. If I create a way to generate data, I'm using the tool, but I still don't have a strategy to generate it based on my data requirements and based on my requirements, it will be still difficult. And the fourth one, knowing the test library we have to support data. This will be the last part of the talk where I will show you guys how in those examples how JUnit can help you in this data-driven part and managing data with some examples. Questions so far? Nope? Nay? Good. So how we can define a way to generate data? In the market means for our research meanings, which means Google and Stack Overflow, you guys can find mainly those 4 links that are really good ones that are showing you how you generate data in a good way. And they have a common thing there. They are mentioning test data or object model. More object model because it's a term coined by Martin Fowler. So to generate data, but like object model and test data or test data factory are the same thing. And you guys will see that those 4 articles are pretty much the same. And I will deep dive in one approach. So for this approach, what do we need to have? In terms of Java, of course. By the way, I will show Java code, okay? Everyone is comfortable with that, right? No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. I don't know if like anyone that's likes JavaScript here. You? Get out of my talk. No, I'm kidding. Can stay here. You can apply this using TypeScript, not JavaScript, please. But yeah, in the end of the day, it will be the same thing, right? TypeScript will be JavaScript, like yeah. First thing we need to do, using the builder pattern to create model objects to handle the data for me. Second thing, it's good to use the factory pattern just to be able to create different set of data. I will show a silly example of factory pattern. And then we can use a tool to connect the builder and the factory to generate random data all the time we call in this factory. Cool? For this, the term I use here is test data factory because I'm using the factory pattern, I'm generating test data. But it's the same as object model that some articles are mentioning. So don't judge me because I'm using Lombok, otherwise this code will be like really big, huge, okay? It's just for educational purpose. But I have my object here. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of low on simulation thing, super easy one. Don't judge me. I know that low is even more complex than what I'll show you, but it's just for you to understand, okay? So I have some things like name, CPF, email, installments, insurance, amount, etc. And of course, that builder and data annotations will create guidance setters and the builder for me. Cool? This is the first point. Second point is using the building pattern. So what I'm doing here, I have my object simulation.builder, and what I'm doing, for each field, I'm associating data. Cool? Super straightforward, right? So for each field, different data. And then I have the factory pattern. So now I'm using simulation builder. I'm using the same way that I'm using before, but I'm creating a class that's supposed to be my factory class, my factory in general. And of course, I will have like the simulation create simulation, and I can have create simulation without amount. I can have different methods to start generating data, mainly for what? Can you explain? This create data is the happy path, right? But most of the time for our task, when we are trying to fix an issue, we create data for the first sorry? Edge cases, perfect. Yeah, we have a guy that knows about quality here. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Everyone knows about quality, I know. It's perfect to edge cases. Because like the happy path, it's common, right? We are oriented to first create a happy path, and then we need to think about the edge cases, and sometimes it's endless, unfortunately. Cool. So how we can do this? what I show you. Do you guys want me to create everything from scratch, or just show the code that it's already here developed? Show, develop, show. Okay. So simulation object. Cool. Oh, this is the auto-generated one. Yeah, because I have a lot of simulation. Let me get the DTR, but anyway, can be anyone. So here, so what I have here, the same thing I was showing to you first, before. I have an object, simulation DTR in this case, with all my attributes for this kind of loan thing, okay? Super easy, right? Now I need to create a factory to connect it, then I will create the code. Otherwise I will show the next part of the talk. So let me just create any class here. My class. Cool. So what I can do here, it's supposed to be close, open, final, and public, static, create simulation. But probably static simulation, of course, simulation, create simulation, and then this create simulation will have not new simulation, but simulation builder, and I have the build, and this new IntelliJ is awesome because you start typing, it predicts you everything. Sometimes, most of the time it's really good, sometimes it's annoying, right? But yeah, for now it's really good. So builder.id, so builder.cpf, and so on. I won't create this, but yeah, we put like just 1, 2, 3. ID. What's the meaning of ID here? Did I add it as what? It's a long. Thank you. 12L. So you guys got the whole thing here, right? Return. You guys can see they cannot type properly as well. Yeah, and what is missing now? I told you that I will make a lot of mistakes in the code, right? What is missing here? Where? Here, no, line 7. Parentheses. Here, yeah! We have the object right now. Of course, I have more items, more fields to fill in, right? Perfect. You guys got the idea. There's one thing missing, which is the data part. It's fixed. So every time that I will use this, so system out, and I will do the create simulation, right? And I will run it, and of course I will have, after parsing, come on, yeah, I will have the object here. Everything is new because I didn't set, but CPF is here. But if I run again, it has the same data over and over again. Cool? Now, how we can use a tool for that, to generate this data? There's a guy from Netherlands, Jaap, that has a really good talk about ferries, fakers, and factories, where he compares different tools. So it's really good to take a look at that at this talk later. It have recorded, there are some slides, and this guy talks about these tools: EasyRandall, JFerry, Instancio, and DataFaker. Every tool solves a different problem, of course. So we need to understand which tool is best for me, given the context I'm in. But nowadays, from my opinion, it's Elias' opinion, the last one, DataFaker, is one of the best ones right now. Of course, the others are good as well. And I will show you how to do these things with DataFaker. With DataFaker, what you can do, you can instantiate the main class, and I can even set the locale for that, German. And then I can use faker, and it's a builder. So faker.name, as soon as I type dot, I can have the full name, middle name, starting name, I don't know which name, but a lot of names there in the list. And I can have for a lot of different things. IBANs to generate here localized from Germany. I can have like email address, I can have expressions. And basically what it will do, when I set the locale, when I don't set the locale, it's in English. When I set the locale, it will try to generate that things localized with German names, German street names, etc. If I put Chinese there, it will be the same thing. And I will run with Chinese. It's really fun to see a lot of like things that I cannot understand. Hopefully someone can understand. But really, really easy to use this tool, okay? What we can do right now, we can combine. We do have the builder and the factory with fixed data. Now I can remove this part of fixed data, and I can just add in every field the usage of DataFaker. So every time this will run, like Faker, the create simulation, the Faker will create a different value for it every time. So I have random data all the time. Cool. There's one more explanation, which is now I'm solving the fixed data and meaningful data, right? But there's one thing that is the data requirement, how I can solve it. No, let me go directly and I show the code. For example, the silly application I have here has two restrictions. The amount has a min and max value, and installments has a min max values, which means I have data requirements. It's super common to have it. So I know that if I need to create edge cases for this, it should be below that or higher, like greater or less than. Cool. How I can do this with DataFaker? What I'm doing actually, I'm using the amount, adding exact that same range that is acceptable for the successful data. Same for installments. Then I solve it, we solve it actually, the data requirement problems. And you guys can do it whatever you want. And this tool is powerful in this way because you can control even like a lot of different stuff. The email address can control, you can control the amount, you can control a lot of things. So you can shape your test factory with all the data you want. Cool. I will show the full example, but right now, any questions before I show the example? Go ahead, up there. Sorry, you can basically you can create you could create just like a loop on that and can create a lot. By the way, one thing that I didn't mention, and a pause for the picture. Yeah, this guy's the best one. Yeah. So another thing that commonly and I all the time forget to add here. One, I can create for thousands. Yeah, and by the way, the performance of this tool is cool. In the tools website, there is a section performance, and they generate like almost millions of data, and the performance is really nice. So you can generate a lot. And another thing I won't show here, but there is a seed, of course. If you need to use the same set of data, use it just to do some debugging stuff, you can as well. Cool. Thank you for the question. So now is the time for the code. And normally we will do this because he will take a picture of the tattoo as well because I like it. Yeah, one sec. Yeah, thank you so much. You are the best. So now I will show you the whole shape of the application I have. I won't explain the application itself, but let's go to the factory. So I have here more or less one factory class. I'm just like adding the normal data requirements that I know that I have. Cool. What I have here in my application. So non-existent name. Let me show here. This is the basic one. The same example I showed you in the slide is generating for valid data. So generating a random name with middle name, a valid CPF and mail address, the amount installments based on the range I have for my data requirements, etc. But what is the beautiful thing you guys can do? If I come here, for example, simulation with not valid email. So what I can do, what I'm doing actually, I'm creating a valid one and then I modify the valid one to an invalid one instead of generating over and over again. It makes a little bit of sense, right? So instead of like setting an email, I'm just setting username because we will not end up with @ and dot something. So invalid email. If I want something like exceeding the installments, getting my valid object, but only for installments, I'm setting like something different from what is permitted. So I will have an invalid installments for that, and I can play with my edge cases. So far, so good. All the time that if I use it, and let's use it actually, my class, so I can just like remove this. So var simulation, no, simulation 1, simulation data factory dot valid simulation, and let's valid simulation for now, simulation only, and I will print out it. I don't even need to print out because I'm using the logs there. So when I use it, you guys can see that I have a log here showing the data that I'm using. So you guys can see the name is Oscar. There is a CPF, there is an email. The email is not connected to the name, an amount, installments, etc. You guys can see it, right? So, okay. If I run it again, Oscar is gone. Now is Mrs. Lucia. Sorry. Yeah. So, and if I run again, I have again a different set of data, which is pretty nice. Now it's serial. And if I use the invalid ones, just to show that it's working, and I will remove this because comments are not good. So I can use now all my created ones, let's say with exceeding installments. By the way, it's logging twice because I have the valid one and then an invalid one. And it's good for traceability as well. So the first one, let's take a look on it. The first one is the valid. And installments, right, is my problem. So when I see here, installments, it's generating, based on my requirements, cannot be maximum of 40, if I'm not mistaken. But here, the invalid one, installments are really high. And of course, we have a problem because I want this problem because I'm using the methods to, okay, get me an object that exceeds the installments based on my data requirements. Cool? Any questions so far? I like the separate approach, but we mean doing reflection with annotations, creating our custom ones, just annotating an object with to ingest the data. Oh, with annotations, yeah, you can could do this, yeah. I would say, like, from my perspective, yeah. So the question is, okay, would I use or would be good to use like annotations to deal with those data differences? For sure. If I would have an application to test or to like develop that has a lot of different data requirements, probably I would create an annotation for sure. But if it's not that huge, like from my perspective, factory approach will suffice. So it will be super like easy to create as well. Thank you for the question. I'm ending the first part of the talk. And it's super straightforward, right? It's generating data. And you guys can see that it's not difficult at all. Let me just come back here. You guys can see I'm talking from 25 minutes to basically show this to you. Yeah? You guys could just read like 1 minute explanation. DataFaker, create a factory model, edit, done. this explanation is needed about the problems, how we can solve, all the possibilities we have. Cool? What I will do right now, I will jump into another topic, which is the same, but the last part of the talk, but you have a lot of time, which is not understanding data requirement. That's know the testing library support for the data. Because we can create all this approach, but we must to understand the library, testing library we are using to create those data to help us to deal with it. Cool? How many of you are using testng here for Java? I'm still using it. Okay. How many of you are using JUnit 4? Okay. Why? Is there any requirement that the company's policy that it cannot, or it's because like it's a lot of work to legacy? It's a lot of work. Okay, I will. You guys know about open rewrite? You know that mean like using open rewrite will do like instantly for you. Of course, there will be probably some problems because we won't be perfect or can be perfect. You guys need to adjust, but open rewrite is for the win. How many of you are using JUnit 5? Yeah! Cool. JUnit 5 so far the best one. The best testing library for Java at least. And JUnit 5 has 5 different, actually 4 different ones. There's a new one, but I will explain like the method source. I'm creating a deviation method source because method source you can have the internal, external. It's not explaining in the docs, but I will explain to you why it means internal, external. They just created in milestone 1 of the latest JUnit, the field source, where you can in the field have some data in a field, and you can use that field as the argument for the data. But it's experimental, so that's why it's not here, and they just released it like last week. Okay, but I will go through, explain to you those 5 different approaches, and of course I have my preference on this, and I will tell you my preference, what I suggest to you. Cool? First one, by the way, I will show most of the time is just code here, and then I will go to the code, my real code, and show you how I develop for some parts. So first one is the value source. It's really straightforward. By the way, if you're not just familiar with JUnit 5, all the time that we need to use any data feature from JUnit, we must add the notation parameterize the test. Cool? So it's the first highlighted annotation there. And of course, you can give it a really good name, and you guys can see in brackets that I have like a parameter that I will concatenate with the data I'm using. So it's really nice when you see it in our IDE and our output, you're actually using the actual values you're using. So try to use this. It's really nice. And then I have the annotation value source. Value source is super straightforward. I have values based on objects. I can have like normal objects or different kind of objects like strings, big decimals, like normal primitive types that are objects, and all the primitive types. So I have a primitive type here that is integer, ints, an array of ints. So 7, 10, 12, and 40. So I'm just doing a silly assertion. Okay, assert that value is greater than the actual value. And that value is a value like 7, so it's greater than or equal, so this test won't fail, right? But just to show you that the method, what this code will do with parameterize the test. It will loop, the test will run 4 times because I have 4 different data. And then I will do we'll have this assertion. If anything goes wrong, it'll show you, okay, this specific data, it's failing because it's not meeting the criteria for the assertion. Cool? Super straightforward, right? Easy peasy. And probably you guys have some unit tests or integration tests that requires this kind of thing. You guys can do straightforward instead of creating 4 different tests, 4 methods with the same code duplication there. Sonar will comply, right? We're like, okay, you have a code duplication here, like remove this. We all love and hate Sonar, right? When you do the scans and check the things. So this next one is internal method source. What I'm saying internal method source here, method source super straightforward. First, method source It's we need to create a method inside the class, which will be in a string of arguments. Arguments is a specific class from JUnit which will hold data. And I have like the ship products, and I have a string of those arguments for those data. So a string and a big decimal, and I'm creating different data, micro SD, JBL, and an iPad with those values. Okay. And what I will do, I will tell my parameterized test to use method source up there and chip products. I'm just using the same name as my list of data. We call this DataFaker in JUnit as well. So it's connecting the method name with the method source. JUnit will do this magic, and then we will run. Easy peasy, right? It's good, but this is really good when you guys need it in the class, and this is shared across the same test in the same class. Okay? Remember this. But what if I need this set of data in different tests? Not only in one test, but different test classes. This is called, for me, by me, external method source. So what is the meaning? Is the same thing, but there's two differences. One, my factory, my data factory will be an external class. So I have there JUnit external data with basically the same method, but it must be static because of JUnit wants this to be static. Okay. And in my annotation method source, instead of adding only the method name, I need to place, this is not that good thing, the full specialized class name there, containing the method, right? So con Elias Nogueira, data-driven, JUnit external data, chip products, and I can have it externally. What I don't like in this approach, the way to connect to the method source within external one, it's only through a string. It could be the class, right? It could be something there. So if I need to do a refactoring, the IDE will help you, but not that much, because it's really hard to identify these kind of things. There's a better option that I will show you in a second. So far so good? Yep. No one is sleeping? Yay. And this one is the last one. Not the last one to show, but the last one about these general ones. It's argument provider. This is the best one from my perspective. Argument provider, it's kind of the external method source, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. Why? I do have an external class as well. Products, data, argument providers. I'm implementing the argument provider interface here from JUnit. And it's the same thing. A string of arguments, I have all the data, but there's only this, I need to implement exactly the same method that is needed. So in this case, I can have a class with only one method to generate data. Is the drawback. But on the other hand, when I'm using the method source, I can use directly the class. Yes, question?
Is it like a functional interface, or are there other stuff inside the arguments provided?
Inside the arguments provided is a functional interface. So in contrast to the external method source to argument providers is the best one, right? The problem would be if I want different data generation approach, I need to create a lot of classes. But I will show you how we can more or less solve it in some cases. Cool? Easy peasy, right? Did anyone knew about this before? About this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. More hands. 6. Okay. It's good. It's good. And then we have the CSV provider. And please, don't use CSV provider if you need just a lot of strings or integers or something like this, because you have the value source for that. Why are you would use like the CSV source? But in CSV source, the best thing to do, I'm not even showing here, yeah. how to use the CSV source directly, because it's the same as value source, but I'm showing here how to get an external CSV file, and then JUnit will do the rest. So what I'm doing here, I have the CSV file source. I'm loading for my resource folder the product CSV. I will skip the first line because it's the header, right? And then I have that CSV with product and amount with that data. And JUnit will do this match based on the parameters of my method. It will load the CSV class, it will match, okay? String product is the first column. JUnit doesn't want to know actually if it's the same name, etc. But for JUnit, the first parameter will be the first column, second parameter, second column. And you guys can have all the necessary tests based on a CSV file. I know that is like the Greek or ancient people were doing before, like using CSV files for testing, but in some legacy systems it's still necessary, right? So there's an option as well. And then how we can use this better. Close this, close this, close this. Yep. Node error, simulation model provider. Here. I do have, let me do one thing, usage. Let me show how I'm using this first. So I do have a test. Instead of creating, this is an API test, okay? It's an integration test. Instead of creating one different test per edge case, right? It's common, it's totally acceptable. I'm creating only one test, invalid simulations that won't meet all the data requirements, without name, exceeding installments, mean installments, etc., etc., etc. And I have only one test for this. So I'm using rest assured here. So basically, when I do a post in a simulations endpoint, with a set of data, here my body has an invalid simulation, you have a payload as the simulation object with like invalid data, then the stats code should be unprocessable entity with some specific message and the path. Normally, when we do develop with Spring or even Quarkus, we have like key and value, like showing okay, this is the key error, this is the value of this error, right? So what I did, instead of creating a lot of code and make this class like 1,000 lines, for all the possible edge cases, I have only one test. How I did that? If I note that I'm using the argument source here, the argument provider. If I go to that class, it's the same thing that I was showing to you, implements argument provider, but what I created in the string of arguments that I'm sending to this, first I created all the simulation objects with the wrong data, with expected by my edge cases. Minimum amount, exceeding amount, minimum installments, exceeding the installments without a valid email with empty name. Cool? And I'm adding it in my list of arguments. But together with my list of arguments, that the first argument is the simulation object, I'm sending two different things here. The key and a message. So when I have an error, I know that the key and the message will be this for this specific one. And for this, I just created an enumeration with the key and message. When I have the issue with like the amount is greater than that thing, the key is error amount, and the message is okay, amount must be equal or greater than this. That will be exactly what my response body will show to me, okay? Cool? Now, look what I did with a simple thing in JUnit. Instead of having those endless lines of code with a lot of test methods, I just created some logic to decrease it and to use it in a smart way. If I have one more field with one more data requirement, I just need to go to my data provider. I can create one more object here, add it. I will create one more key of errors, and I do have one more test case with simple changes. Does it work? Let's see. To Yeah, Spring is running. Look how beautiful it is. So all the tests run. So based on the issues, okay? The key that I added to show is the scenario amount must be equal or greater, etc. But yeah, scenario must be well formatted address, cannot be empty, etc. But it's testing the negative ones, right? So yeah, so the main one should be validate all the scenarios. It's here, and for each scenario that I'm using, it's using all these data providers. Just doing a drill down for you guys, where the first one, amount must be equal to or greater to equal, yeah, is this mean amount. Is mean amount here, connecting this invalid data with the keys and running it for me. And of course, if I just look at the full logs that we have here, oh no, in this way I'm not logging because I disabled the log in the configuration. Okay, it's not just showing the log.info with all the invalid data. Cool. So questions so far? Yes, go ahead. Let me. The extension context here, yeah, from JUnit, yes. This extension context is needed from JUnit. You can get any let's see what your question is. What is inside, right? Extension context dot. I can have all the possible information from the test that we run. So I can get the display name of the test, any parameters that's configured. If the test has a parent, I can get the, if you have nested tests in JUnit, I can have, okay, which is the parent test for this, execution mode, all the things related to the test execution here. Excellent question, by the way. Because it's here, like, why is there you're not using it, right? Yeah, good catch. Good catch. Cool. More questions? Yeah, here and there.
In terms of where the tests are being run, would you recommend to extend this with a kind of system parameter where you can see if it's running locally or it's running on the external build, or what would be your approach to that? Because if you are running integration tests, they can be exponentially large or long in runtime.
Yeah. Actually, what is my approach nowadays? We run everything not everything locally, but we do. I know this is a little waste of time, but we do run only the features we are developing locally and testing it with everything in self-contained. Then when we push the pull request and it's there for evaluation, we run the full set of tests, just to avoid waste of time and running in long queues and everything. But you might, if you want, of course, it's a good approach. You might configure this to just generate, like, I don't know, less data. Don't use this, don't use that, for sure. It's what your question, right? Yeah. Cool. Thanks. There, up there. With property-based testing, never, but we can, right? Never tried, but you can. By the way, other thing we can do, I just show it the factory once. Simulation, data factory. They are self-contained methods, right, in the factory. But what you could use, you could have a wrapper, and just an abstraction. If you need, for example, try to do the full end-to-end test through an API or even through the front end of, like, buying flight tickets, for example. So you can have the factory only for the flight search, the factory only for the customer information, the factory only for the payments data, and then you can create an abstraction to just use, now my flight tickets, I don't know what you call, give me first the flight data, then generates the customer data, then generates the financial data, payments data. You can create those abstractions on top of the factory. And this is basically the object model that the articles will show you later. So you can even expand more and create this in a nice way. To finish it, the last explanations. So the references, it's on the slide. I will show you a QR code and I will tweet and post on LinkedIn all the links. But everything is explained in the project. So there's two projects. One only showing you how to manage test data with libraries, and another one how I am implementing the data factory. It's pretty much what I showed to you. And then this is the QR code that will lead you to a GitHub page that will have like next presentations and past presentations. And in the past presentations, the first one in the past ones is this one. So the slides are there and the GitHub projects are there. But I will share in the social networks as well this. Okay? Hope you guys had a good time. Hope you guys learned something new, and thank you so much for being here for questions.